And just the amount of research that went into all of this, because I just remember Tim going to every film noir movie ever, and we would just, all the time, there would be something to do, and he's like, want to go to the movies? And it was just, I mean, you can see it, the dark shadows, and then the music. I mean, everything is just so film noir and really pulls you in.
Yeah, I remember us all going to see Casablanca. And I think it was in the Castro Theater or something. It was one of those old San Francisco theaters. I forget which one it was, but it was the whole gang of us went. And
yeah, remember? Did you guys go to the Golden Gate Fields for the horse races? I know they weren't.
I wish
that was part of it, because I think there were some scenes around that, and that was just fun. I mean, just the research trips.
Yeah,
those were fun.
When we leave the diner for the last time, there's a sort of a moment with just kind of a technical and sort of dramatic moment with the music where the music on the radio is playing, and there's going to be a little bit of a cut, and then you go to this cutscene music, which takes it's supposed to be sort of a seamless break from the game music to the cutscene music, and then the music kind of comes out of the radio, and doesn't sound like it's on a radio anymore. It's the music of people's dreams and wishes.
So Tim created a character, which I very much appreciate. I love her. Her name is Lupe, and she happens to be a little bit based on me and my idiosyncrasies. And so I remember one time we were hanging out, and he told me, he's like, see, how can you tell me that I don't understand our relationship? Like, I can write about it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, see, she's super organized. Nobody listens to her, but she has a lot of really important things to say. And see, we need her, and that's what you realize.
That's awesome.
So I was like, oh, I love you. And she does karate kicks. That was the best, like, because I like to punch people. And so if you notice, sometimes, I don't know if they have it in here, but she punches in the air. She does air punches.
That's awesome.
She was really easy to cast because I had such a great frame of reference for her.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
So these is like scenes are from the production of the game in a way where Leslie would come to me like, look what I made. I made a chart of every single scene in the game plus every single actor, and I coded it. Yellow means Manny's in it, and blue means this prop is in it. And she's so excited about these things that she did, and this character is doing the exact thing.
Yep.
You have to take things from your life and put them in your work, even though they don't read anything to anybody else.
Otherwise, well, that just means work will be about life rather than life being about work, right?
Exactly. I wish you would slide down the banister, because we put a lot of effort into sliding down that banister. Come on, slide down the banister. I recommend any player who's in this room slide down the banister. It's much faster than walking.
Especially if you're 6 and you don't have terrible consequences when you hit the bottom.
You should not try that at home. Actually, kids, you should. You should go slide down the banister of your house right now.
Everybody's got to do it once.
I remember animating Manny sliding down the banister. And I remember Tim kept calling for something. He's got to look cool. And so I did that, and I don't think he was ever really happy with it. So I don't know. Apparently don't know what cool means.
You got to put some Ray-Bans on him.
Yeah. I mean, Manny's a suave guy, but I don't know if suave guys slide down banisters. Maybe I should have done it slower.
Manny's music, the Casino Calavera music, that was a big moment for me doing the score, because it was done fairly early on, and it kind of it determined a lot of other stuff, just sort of stylistically.
Mm-hmm.
Get that sort of Gene Krupa thing going on in the beginning. And,
Gene Krupa.
Yeah, one of the great drummers of all time.
I just want to have a really international flair, I guess, because Casablanca was very international. But also, I love the game Last Express, the Jordan Mechner game. Last Express, you're on a train, and there's a lot of listening to conversations that are not presented at full volume because you're eavesdropping. You're walking down a hallway and you hear someone talking in a room, but they'll often be very quiet, but also sometimes in another language, like French or German or something. Mm-hmm. And just the idea of like overhearing a quietly spoken French conversation was so neat in that game that we tried to have people talking in other languages in here, like that. Mm-hmm. The croupier and the gambling room was speaking French.
Oh wow, I forgot about that mural. That was supposed to be sort
really
of
good.
Oh, well, thank you. I did that. Did you? No, I did, but it was based on, like a Gustav Klimt. But then I also did those really bad textures on the roulette wheels. And,
Oh, they're fine.
oh, no, but I remember Adam Schnitzer actually getting angry at me. He was like, don't paint light in the paintings.
Who got angry with you?
Oh, not really angry. I mean, he only hit
You probably
me.
felt the same way as when Tim said, Manny's not cool enough, so I got Mr. Just make it cool. Canadian.
What's that about?
That's now so not cool.
Chowchilla Charlie.
Oh, yes.
That name comes from an actual person I know who was from Chowchilla, which no one remembers anymore. But when I was a kid, an entire school bus full of children was kidnapped in the town Chowchilla. Do you remember that? In
No.
California.
Wow.
A school bus full of kids was kidnapped, and the people demanded ransom. And it was crazy to think about. It was on the news. It was
Jeez.
Chowchilla. Everyone was talking about this kids, and eventually they were found and rescued, and I don't believe they were hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I can talk about that story now. And
Yeah.
all the kids went home. But and then years later, I just a friend of ours was dating this guy named Charlie, and he was from Chowchilla, and I was like, oh wow, were you on the bus? He was like, no, I was sick that day. I was sick. I didn't go to school that day, and so I didn't get kidnapped.
Wow.
And we always referred to him as Chowchilla Charlie.
Wow.
And he's now in the game as Chowchilla Charlie, even though his personality is not as sleazy as this character. He was a fine, outstanding, although very lucky guy.
Yeah.
But this is our Peter Lorre character.
That's Kay Cuter, and Kay was, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s, and he had a big, long, gray beard.
Yeah.
And he was a raging smoker.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
you'd have to break him every 45 minutes,
Oh,
otherwise he'd start getting into a really bad mood. And on one of those sessions, he plays the croupier later on, where he speaks French and English, and it's just, he delivers the numbers. We were behind on time, and so I sort of pushed him to an hour, and all of a sudden I found myself in an argument with Kay over how to pronounce 20 in French.
Oh.
And, and so I was like, it's definitely time for a smoke break on you. Get out of here.
This is where I had never heard of actual sea bees before, and someone made that. I talked about how they could be these bees down there, and they're like, oh, like sea bees, and I was like, where are sea bees?
Yeah, they were a Navy thing. Yeah.
And wait, does that come from the letters CB, like?
I don't know.
For construction brigade or something.
Yeah,
I have
good.
to look that
Like
up.
Jeep comes from general personnel vehicle. Yeah.
So,
could be.
and this bee is called Terry because of the character from On the Waterfront, Marlon Brando's character named Terry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we got all that stuff.
That's Raphael Sparge, who he was actually the main character in Knights of the Old Republic, in the original game. But Raphael was a big on-camera guy, and hadn't really done a lot of voiceover. And there's a scene later on where he's addressing all of the workers. And the thing about Raphael was that he physically performs when he's in the studio.
Oh, right.
And so as he was addressing the field, he kept on going off mic, and so the engineer's like, oh, we got to keep him on mic. And so I said, hey, Raphael, can you stay on mic? He's like, oh, really sorry. We re-rolled, and all of a sudden his energy just went
Oh, interesting.
down, and so it just wasn't working the same way. So
Yeah.
we pulled out another 2 mics and put him out.
Oh,
so
that's
that,
great.
So that he could then go, you are the fat cats of industry, and he could kind of move his head, and we
Yeah.
still caught it. And so then we just cut around the 3 tracks to get the
Oh,
final
that's
take.
so crazy.
Yeah. But he's a great actor.
We definitely should give a huge shout out to Peter Chan, and yeah, I'm still jealous of that guy.
Chan the man.
I know. Just when those packages would come, it would just be like Christmas, and you'd open, you'd see those, and you just think, oh man, and he's a nice guy too.
The weird
happy
thing about
family.
that was I never experienced like the delivery of the package
Oh.
firsthand, but I still got excited about it.
No, they're beautiful, and he's such a sweetheart. I think we're gonna come up to Garv's set that I destroyed. That I destroyed 2 weeks of Garv's work by trying to learn how to 3D model, and somehow I ended up erasing 2 weeks of his work. because it was the fish place that you had to redo.
Oh yeah, the elevator.
Yeah, the elevator and that place with the fish. And I'm sorry, Garv. This is the set that you had to build
This is
twice.
Garv's, right?
Yeah, this is the one.
This was the gift that kept
And it's
on
actually
giving.
very beautiful, I might add.
Yes. Well, a second time is.
The second time I
But I'm sorry. You were saying that was a real building.
Yeah.
Where was that in Spain?
I think it's in Paris, I think.
Oh.
And I remember seeing a photo of it and being like, wait, Peter.
Good artist borrow, great artist steal.
There's that spotlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this was another, we lifted up or took the technology from RenderDroid, which was in Jedi Knight, but it didn't have spotlights at the time. It just had directional lights and point lights. So that was actually one of the very first things when when I got hired onto the team, which I was brand new to LucasArts, and Tim and Brett brought me in. And my first thing, I was like, I'm gonna put in spotlights because I know how to do that, and it's gonna matter, and that'll be my stake in the ground. And this was one of the first scenes I worked on that had spotlights. So when Manny walks off stage and you see the light, when he walks out of the light, that was it was a pretty important moment. Everybody thought that was pretty cool. I was like, all right, I did something. I'm in this amazing project with this amazing team, and I did something.
In the final version of the game, are the backgrounds actually just pre-rendered flats?
Yes, they are.
See, that's amazing to me because, we live in the world of 3D now. We're used to floating the camera around inside of these things. But, once you chose your camera angle to pre-render something, that was it. There you go.
No, it's Manny walking around in a blank 3D room with Z-depth data to clip him in front of the stuff that he needs to clip in front of.
And then for some reason I was always really interested in beatniks and reds. I think because it was so foreign to me, like the red scare was not part of my actual life, but it always seemed like this thing it's hard, it's funny. It was always funny to me to imagine how passionate people were about that, how big of a deal it was for them. And it was always so, but if from a safe distance, it was just kind of entertaining. Like, oh wow, people are were really concerned about communists everywhere and unions and.
No, I remember when I was a little kid, there were people would still talk about communist plots in all seriousness. Yeah.
I remember at the time it was a big debate. Like, should we require P100 or P133? Like penny 100, penny 133. It's like. Nope, your target platform is whatever was on sale at CompUSA for $500 last year.
It's like a P70.
Yeah, it's like P60 I think is what we ended up with as the minimum spec. We ended up going for P90 at the end, but it was one of the things where it's like those kind of constraints where it's like you really could pull it off with all the kinds of machines we had in the company, but the average consumer who we wanted to sell the game to did not have a machine like that. So that's one of the vagaries of the PC market that still persists,
Yeah, and you wouldn't, when you think about Grim, you wouldn't necessarily think, but there's all hand-coded assembly rasterizers in here. There's hand-coded assembly blitters in here. Lots of layout asset management. This was a tricky game to optimize and to get running acceptably on the kind of machines that people were going to be running it on. But it doesn't come off like the same technical challenge as a Jedi Knight or something like that. And it wasn't.
It's different kind of technical challenge, much more kind of interdisciplinary.
It was really getting all this weird stuff happening at the same time.
Oh, Membrillo. My brother actually makes Membrillo, which is a quince jelly that you eat with cheese. Membrillo means quince.
Well, sure doesn't sound like it.
Membrillo.
Oh, Membrillo, that's different.
Yeah. What'd you think I said?
How was the lighting handled on the characters in each environment? Does anybody remember that?
I think, however, we were able to set up a couple of lights. I think that was it. I mean,
wasn't there some information that you guys would take the set? Because then we have to save a copy of our sets with the key light and the fill, or just I thought we would save a version of the very simple.
That's possible, yeah, as a starting place. But I mean, it was all very kind of rudimentary.
And you had to be really strategic with, what is the best use of a minimal amount of lights to accommodate the character and the entire scene that he's got to be in.
Yeah, there was no, I mean, for all this stuff, there was no roadmap or procedure for like, oh, this is how you do 3D forests or light character. I mean, we had to make everything up and solve every problem to get everything to happen pretty much in this. So there's a lot of just on the fly, different people figuring stuff out per scene, how to make something work. And as a result, some things work better than others.
I remember one time showing Pete something. He said, well, I don't like it, but I don't know why. And which is the most helpful criticism that you can ever get, because you don't know how to fix the thing. But I'm being facetious.
We wanted them to show. Eventually, you're going to see him do a bee dance, which we were really proud to get. I had to actually do some dancing for the animators to get that to be accurate as possible. Because when bees find pollen or a bunch of flowers, they fly back to the hive and then they shake their abdomens in a certain way, which tells people what it helps lead the other bees.
That's right. You know.
So when Terry's trying to lead the this right here, he's like trying to lead the other bees, and so he gives them a speech, and then he shakes his abdomen a little bit to tell everybody where to go. Shake, 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 shake. I can do that dance really well. I don't know why there's so much union jokery in games that I've worked on, but I've always found it, maybe because it was a big part of like movies that air like on the waterfront, and not so much unions, but mobster corrupt unions.
Right.
There's always a big part of that, going on, and then also like worker, anti-worker, communist themes going on. Like it was all tied together. And I don't know if that all sprung out of On the Waterfront or other movies.
Well, On the Waterfront though was kind of, it was sort of championing the plight of the working man, but it also was talking about the dark side of the union thing for sure.
But it was a corrupt union. It was a mob-run deal.
That's true.
I'm a strong believer in things that should be. When you're making stuff, it should be something that could only been made by you or in that group of people, and at the time you made it in the place you made it.
Yes.
I think Grim is definitely that case. That's one of the great things about Grim. I think it's a collection of amazing artists like you and the visual artists and the programmers and the actors, and everything that came together for that game was just such was almost an overwhelming distraction of amazing artists coming together. Like, oh my God, look at that background. Oh my God, listen to this music. Oh my God, listen to that voice. So I think it makes that game really special. But it also has a lot of personal details that are just kind of woven into it that makes it so, like, even if we were making this game from scratch with the same intentions today, it would just be completely different.
Speaking of database, that was really how we accomplished so much, right? Is from an organizational standpoint of the music, of the sound effects, and of the voice. And I remember, especially for voice, how critical it was. And what we in the sound department would do is inherit and share the use of the database with the voice department. And you could do a search and isolate all the lines for, say, Manny, or isolate all the lines that needed to have reverb baked into them, or another type of processing. And then you would just divide and conquer and just master everything in groups and bring it all together, have a single reference for volume, and use the database to keep organized and isolate different found sets of different criteria.
You hear the cats racing? We were always so sad that we never showed the cat races, but that was for budget reasons. Obviously, we didn't want to cut the actual cats, but I wanted to have giant cats running on a track like that.
And the idea of a cat's racing being herdable enough to race is pretty. Why cats?
Why cats? There was a. God, I don't remember. Why cats? That's a good idea.
I just remember making the music going well at some point, because you're near the kitty litter.
There's always background scripts that do things as you enter a room. It's start all these scripts when you enter the room, like that do all these background actions. Then when you leave the room, it's just to stop all those scripts. And it was all, left to chance because, left to programmer error. And there was one. So we were talking about this earlier. There's a script that runs the cat races, and it runs the announcer for the cat races. And it actually, true to Tim's attention to detail, he wanted to actually simulate cat races. And
there
actually,
are actual cat races going on.
There are cats that are being raced, and the same name will show up, and you'll hear this cat getting ahead of the other one. I think Chris Purvis did that.
Yeah, and the odds are real. The winnings are real. It is.
Yeah, Manny's wallet fills up. The cat races are running, and so it's in the background. The announcer's running, and it's the simulation of these cat races being run. And yeah, they never killed that script. So you play the rest of the game from the cat scene, and the cat race simulator script is always running.
Yes, from the moment the cat races start to the end credits of the game, the cat race simulation is going on in the background.
There are still kitties racing today.
Yes.
It's strange. The characters in this game don't like to go into crowded areas, almost as if it's too hard to render them.
How big were those when you drew them? Like the posters and the murals and stuff.
We could actually work rather big.
Did you have Photoshop back then?
We had Photoshop, but I don't know if we had layers back then.
Oh, we had layers.
I think we did. Oh, yeah, we had layers, but maybe
Paul
only.
just didn't know what they were.
No, but I think too. You only had one undo or maybe two undos.
Oh wow.
Her character's a little bit inspired by, I think it's Big Sleep too, where Bogart is hiding from someone. He needs to hide in a bookstore.
Right.
And he goes in there, and there's a woman in there, and she's really into him.
Chippa Ben-Hur 1863 edition, the one with the errata on page 47 or something.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is a memory. Yeah.
Well.
And it's just really, he looks at her, and he's like, she seems like she's really attracted to him, if I remember correctly. And he like takes off her glasses and is like, yeah, okay. Like it was really kind of messed up scene. But
well, it's that that was the subtext of the noir film.
And then he pulls the shades.
Hanky panky.
Yeah, the
will
hanky
go
panky.
down.
Yeah,
Right.
they lock the door and pull down the shades. And that's a little bit what this scene is all a reference to or inspired by.
Because she's telling him her story.
Is that cat actually modeled, or is that a painting?
No, that's a modeled cat. That's
The lighting is so soft. It's.
Mm-hmm. I think I might have even. Oh, please, did I do that? Did I model that cat? I might have modeled that cat.
It's a cool looking cat. Just the lighting.
Thank you.
He's one sexy cat.
Well, I remember, speaking of VO, I remember you casting this, and then I remember you vanishing.
Yeah.
And you were gone for so long recording this.
Yeah, I was down in. Actually, it was the only one time we rented an apartment rather than staying at a hotel, because I was down in LA recording this for 6 weeks, and then I was bookended on either side with 2 weeks for 2 Lucas Learning projects.
Yeah.
And so it was.
Yeah, you just moved away.
Yeah. It's a long time.
To some extent, Grim Fandango is a bit of a mutt. It's got pieces of Jedi Knight. It's got pieces of Scum. It's got pieces of Outlaws. It's got pieces of it's got iMuse coming in, and it's got the Lua language. So it was a game kind of made on a shoot. For all the technical challenges in it, a lot of pieces were sort of pre-existing, and kind of it was a matter of maybe a new era of game development where you don't write everything from scratch, but you kind of put it together in the best possible way.
Well, and one of the kind of the side effects of that was, since we had pretty robust solutions to video playback and rendering and art pipes in front of us, it really, a lot of the effort, aside from just making everything, all the blocking and tackling working, was spent on how to making games like this convenient and producible and artist friendly. And you had built some tools that were really unlike the things that appeared in RenderDroid or Smush or some of the technologies it was built on. So it's a bit of a mutt in that we borrowed a bunch of really great technology, but there's also a lot of really innovative stuff.
And so that guy, Toto Santos, which is the name of All Souls Day, that was one important casting thing that meant so much at the time. And I love The Usual Suspects.
Yes.
And there's a burn victim in the very beginning of the game, a guy who was burned on the ship.
Right.
And he's in the bed, and he's the first guy who says, "Guys are so safe."
Okay, right.
Is this Hungarian or Polish?
Yeah,
guy?
yeah.
And we got that actor to do Toto Santos' voice, because I was like, I want him to sound like that guy from Usual Suspects. And so if you listen to him, he's just
awesome.
Like, I wanted to have him say, "Guys are so safe."
One thing for a sound designer or for a composer, when the story is great and the writing is great and the pacing is great, whether it's a film or a game, you can't help but weigh in a successful way yourself, because there's this flow already and you're just participating with it and enhancing it. One of the jobs of a composer, especially in a game like this, a lot of time passes, and you need to both entertain the listener and provide musical interest, but it has to also last for a very long time without being tiresome. And I think Pete did a great job at striking a balance between a great deal of musical interest, but also kind of hanging back and taking its time and letting the story unfold, letting the player concentrate on the game.
I love how all the characters have very distinct voices that match their personality and their look. Like, how much would Tim give you direction, and how much was your direction influencing?
Well, like ideally, when you go through the process, you you have character pictures along with the audition copy, and we would send that out to the various agencies, and the auditions would come back, and I mean, it kind of, the process kind of does that for you, because you're listening to the auditions and you're looking at the picture, and you narrow it down to, like, a handful of candidates, and then sort of we'd sit down with Tim and just go through them, and that's, sometimes there's only one choice, you just know it.
Right. It's just so great.
Yeah.
All of them.
What you do is you cast for, like, the major characters, and then you use that same talent pool with a lot of the smaller characters. Right. And so that's why Kay is, he was cast for Velasco, but then the croupier just was one of those that's like, okay, well, that fits, he works.
So you let the actors pretty much kind of come up with their character as well when they look at the picture?
Yeah. Definitely. Like, for those secondary characters, they're totally undefined when you're in the studio, and so you just kind of sit there, look at the picture, look at the lines, talk about it, just set a dialogue voice in, and then go.
Yeah, just create. I love it. It's just creative everywhere, like through the whole thing. Like, not just with us, but even with the actors and stuff like that. And you really are like watching a movie. Yeah, it's amazing.
And you really want that relationship between sort of the voiceover director and the actor to be collaborative, and allow them the freedom to bring stuff to the table and try things, and it just adds a lot.
I mean, that was always my favorite piece of concept art, was the flowers flying off the lighthouse.
Yes.
And this lighthouse is always so beautiful.
Yeah.
And a lot of those noir stories just have these really hard luck characters who don't get a break, and there's the private eye is trying to solve the story, but they'll meet someone along the way who just gets bumped off, and it's not their fault, and they just get wrapped up in things. And
yeah, like the little two-time crook or two-bit crook in The Big Sleep, who drinks the poison, but doesn't spill the beans, as it were. Yeah.
And Lolo's one of those.
Lola's one of those characters who's faithful but down and out.
You get a special award for playing the Rusty Anchor song.
I secretly wanted to sing this one. I did a demo for you, remember?
Yeah. This is one of the things, much like Cabbage Boy, that we wrote together.
Yep.
I wrote the lyrics, and then you came up with a tune and then changed the lyrics a little bit to actually make them more musical. My boat's got a rusty anchor.
Yep.
Oh, rusty anchor. Going down.
Do it. Rusty anchor's got to stink around. I said stink around, it's stick around. Rubicava is named after a girl I knew in the 4th grade. Her last name was Rubicava. That's a fun fact for you.
Wow.
She's married now. Doesn't use it anymore, so I get to use it.
You're keeping it alive.
Wait, why did Cataglotis leave the piano playing thing and come down here? Oh, you got him the pass. You gave him the pass.
Right.
So
now he's a high roller.
And he's an alcoholic and a gambler because of you.
Right.
But it's all for a good cause, adventure game playing.
So this is one of the parts of the game where a huge amount was cut out. There was supposed to be a gigantic action sequence like there was in all of, I think we cut it with giant action sequence out of every year, but there was a gigantic action sequence where there was an animal called the Dillopede that guarded the bottom of the elevator. It was a giant armadillo, and the Dillopede was there to kind of snap at Manny as he came down. And there's this whole sequence where you had to kind of, you had the Dillopede hanging by some elevator cable, and he was snapping at you, and you had to swing on him or something like that. And it's just the idea of a giant vicious armadillo still sticks with me. But it was one of those things where it's like, you look at the context of the game, and it's an adventure game, and the budget's short, and we're already going to be a huge game. What purpose is it serving the game? So we had to cut a lot of stuff out like that just was really cool and fun to design, but ultimately not critical of the game and was going to be really expensive.
This is our first 3D game, and it's funny to see how many puzzles are about the physical properties of things, as opposed to
Right.
in a 2D adventure game, you would never make something based on the shape of something or
Right.
leverage. Like that whole puzzle was very physical. Like you had to move these two objects and stop them from sliding past each other, and the forklift jacked up on its back wheels. And I think we were just so excited to be in a world of physical stuff, or maybe because we were in a world of physical stuff, we had to actually make it physically realistic.
No, and I think this is one of my first sets. Yeah, I remember this is, both of those were, well, it was one of the first ones that I'd ever modeled. And again, it was very simple geometry.
So this is one of the parts in the game that was very inspired by Gilda. You ever seen Gilda? I think Rita Hayworth.
No.
It's a great
like I'm gonna
noir
go home and
movie.
see it now.
It's amazing, and it's the scene that you always see when they show Rita Hayworth, where she just flips her hair up and says, "Who, me?" So anyway, it's about it's set in a resort town where there's a casino, and the main character, there is the main character's working at a casino, and there is this kind of corrupt local law enforcement officer who shows up every night. And the way he gets paid off by the casino to not busted is that he always comes and bets on number 2 at a certain table, and then they always give him his money, and number 2 always wins and stuff. And so I think it's the same number in this game. We always use number 2.